She said, "I'm pregnant by him, but you should marry me to avoid a scandal." I decided to lean into the scandal. I threw a huge baby shower and invited both our families. Then I played the voicemail of her begging me to lie for her before announcing the real father's name to the crowd. I, 31M, found out my fiancée was pregnant with another man's child. She wanted me to cover for her. I had other plans. 3 weeks ago, I thought I had my life figured out. Wedding invitations were sent, the venue was booked, and I was counting down the days until I married the woman I'd been with for 4 years. Then she dropped the bombshell that shattered everything I thought I knew about my future. She told me she was pregnant. At first, I was shocked but happy. We'd talked about kids after marriage, but life doesn't always follow your timeline. Then came the second part, the part that made my blood run cold. The baby wasn't mine. She explained through tears how it had happened during a work conference 3 months ago. A moment of weakness with her colleague from the marketing department. She swore it meant nothing, that she loved me, and that we could work through this. But then came her solution, delivered with the kind of calculated desperation that made me realize I'd never really known her at all. She wanted me to marry her as planned and pretend the baby was mine. The timeline would be close enough that people wouldn't question it. She painted it as the perfect solution, no scandal, no shame for either family, and we could raise the child together. She even suggested we could have our own kids later, making this whole mess just a footnote in our happy ending. I sat there listening to her lay out this elaborate deception like she was planning a dinner party. The audacity was breathtaking. She genuinely believed I would sacrifice my integrity, my future, and my sanity to protect her reputation. When I didn't immediately agree, she shifted tactics. She reminded me about my conservative family, how devastated my mother would be by a broken engagement. She mentioned the deposits we'd lose, the embarrassment of canceling everything. Then she played her final card. She was scared, alone, and needed me. The man who got her pregnant had made it clear he wanted nothing to do with the situation. I told her I needed time to think. What I really needed was evidence. Over the next few days, I did some investigating. The colleague's name was easy enough to find from her work contacts. A little social media stalking revealed he was married with 2 kids. I also remembered her mentioning that conference, how excited she'd been about the networking opportunities. Now it all made perfect sense. The breakthrough came when I found her phone unlocked one evening while she was in the shower. I scrolled through her messages and found exactly what I was looking for, a thread with him from the past month. The messages painted a clear picture. She'd told him about the pregnancy, and he'd immediately cut contact. She'd called him multiple times, begging him to reconsider, to leave his wife, to be part of their child's life. His responses grew shorter and colder until they stopped altogether. But the real treasure was in her voicemails to him. I found one from just 2 days after she'd told me her plan. In it, she spelled out exactly what she intended to do: trick me into marriage and make me raise his child. She talked about how easy it would be to fool everyone, how I was already so invested in the relationship that I'd never leave her. The contempt in her voice when she described me as her backup plan was like a physical blow. I forwarded the voicemail to my own phone and deleted the sent message from her history. Then I started planning. My first instinct was to confront her immediately, but something held me back. Maybe it was the 4 years I'd invested, or maybe it was the realization that she'd probably just find another way to manipulate the situation. She'd already shown she was willing to lie to everyone who mattered to both of us. A private confrontation would give her the chance to control the narrative. That's when the idea hit me. She wanted to avoid a scandal? Fine. But she was about to learn that some scandals are worth having. I started by calling our families and close friends. I told them I had exciting news to share and wanted to throw a surprise celebration. I framed it as a baby shower, explaining that we'd decided to start our family a little earlier than planned. Everyone was thrilled. My mother immediately offered to help with planning, and her parents were over the moon about becoming grandparents. The irony wasn't lost on me. I was using her own pregnancy announcement to orchestrate her downfall. I booked our church's fellowship hall, the same venue where we'd planned to hold our wedding reception. I ordered decorations, arranged catering, and sent invitations to everyone who mattered to both of us. Family, friends, co-workers, neighbors. If they knew us as a couple, they were invited. When I told her about the party, her reaction was perfect. She was nervous but couldn't object without seeming ungrateful. She asked why I wanted to make such a big deal about it. and I told her it was because I was so excited about our future together. The guilt in her eyes almost made me feel sorry for her. Almost. The morning of the party, I made one final preparation. I copied the voicemail to a thumb drive and tested the church's sound system during setup. Everything had to be perfect. Guests started arriving at 2 o'clock. The fellowship hall filled with the people who'd watched our relationship grow, who'd celebrated our engagement, who'd been planning to witness our wedding in just 6 weeks. My mother had gone all out with decorations, blue and pink streamers, balloons, and a banner that read, "Baby shower for the happy couple." She was radiant that afternoon, playing the part of the glowing mother-to-be perfectly. She accepted congratulations gracefully, rubbed her barely visible bump, and talked about how blessed we were. Watching her perform this charade in front of people who genuinely cared about us made my stomach turn. Around 3:30, I called everyone's attention. I stood at the front of the room with the microphone, looking out at the sea of expectant faces. My hands were steady, my voice clear. This was the moment I'd been planning for weeks. I started by thanking everyone for coming to celebrate this special time in our lives. I talked about how much their support meant to us, how family and community were so important during life's big moments. The room was warm with smiles and nods of agreement. Then I shifted gears. I mentioned how important honesty was in relationships, how trust formed the foundation of any lasting partnership. I could see her growing nervous in the front row, probably wondering where I was going with this speech. I explained that sometimes people make mistakes, and that's when you really learn who someone is. Some people own their mistakes and work to make things right. Others try to cover them up and drag innocent people into their deception. The room had grown quiet. People were starting to sense something was off. Then I played the voicemail. Her voice filled the room through the church's sound system, crystal clear and unmistakable. Everyone heard her laugh about how easy it would be to trick me. They heard her call me her safety net and her backup plan. They heard her describe in detail how she planned to pass off another man's child as mine. The silence that followed was deafening. I looked out at faces frozen in shock, disbelief, and growing anger. My mother's hand was pressed to her mouth, her eyes wide with horror. Her parents looked like they'd been physically struck, but I wasn't finished. I calmly explained that the father of her child was actually her married coworker, someone most of our friends knew from company parties and work events I'd attended with her. I provided just enough detail to make it clear this wasn't a heat-of-the-moment confession, but a calculated revelation backed by evidence. The aftermath was immediate and devastating. Her father stood up and walked out without a word. My mother was crying. Friends and extended family members started gathering their things and leaving, some shooting disgusted looks in her direction. She tried to salvage the situation, stammering explanations and apologies, but the damage was complete. You can't unring that bell. Everyone had heard her own words, her own voice describing her betrayal and manipulation in stark detail. I left her standing there in the wreckage of her carefully constructed lie and walked out of the fellowship hall. My part was done. Update 1. The fallout has been swift and absolute. Word spread through our social circles like wildfire. By the next morning, the story had reached her workplace, where HR is now dealing with the mess of her affair with a married colleague. He's apparently been placed on administrative leave while they investigate the situation. Her parents called me to apologize, something I never expected. Her father was particularly upset, not just about the pregnancy, but about her willingness to deceive me and both families. He told me they'd raised her better than that and couldn't understand where they'd gone wrong. My own family has been incredibly supportive. My mother, after getting over the initial shock, told me she was proud of me for standing up for myself. She'd had reservations about the marriage that she'd never voiced, small things that in retrospect seem like red flags. She's been calling and texting nonstop, alternating between apologies and anger. She claims I humiliated her unnecessarily, that we could have worked things out privately. She's accused me of being cruel and vindictive, apparently forgetting that her own plan involved years of ongoing deception. The wedding vendors have been surprisingly understanding about cancellations. Most have agreed to refund deposits once I explain the situation. Word travels fast in the wedding industry, and my story has apparently become somewhat legendary among local planners. Update 2. It's been 2 weeks since the baby shower, and the consequences continue to unfold. Her married colleague's wife found out about everything and has filed for divorce. She's apparently seeking full custody of their children and has hired a lawyer who specializes in infidelity cases. His life has imploded just as thoroughly as hers. She's moved back in with her parents, who are struggling to support her while dealing with their own embarrassment. Her mother called my mother to try to smooth things over, suggesting we all sit down and work through this misunderstanding. My mother politely but firmly declined. The professional consequences have been significant too. Her company has a strict policy about workplace relationships, especially ones involving married employees. While they can't fire her for getting pregnant, they can and have disciplined both her and her colleague for violating company policy. She's been transferred to a different department with limited advancement opportunities. I've started therapy to work through the betrayal and the end of a 4-year relationship. My therapist has helped me understand that my response, while dramatic, was actually a healthy assertion of boundaries. I refused to be manipulated, and I made sure the truth came out before more damage could be done. The hardest part has been dealing with mutual friends. Some think I went too far, that I should have handled it privately. Others applaud me for exposing the deception before it could go any further. I've lost some friendships, but I've also learned who my real friends are. Update 3. A month has passed, and I'm starting to feel like myself again. The initial anger has faded into something more like relief. I keep thinking about what my life would have looked like if I'd gone along with her plan. Years of living a lie, raising another man's child while she continued to manipulate and deceive me. She gave birth last week. The baby is healthy, and according to mutual friends, looks nothing like me. She's named the child after her grandfather, a choice that feels like one final attempt to rewrite history. Her parents are helping with expenses, but the reality of single motherhood is setting in. Her former colleague's divorce was finalized last month. His ex-wife got everything she asked for, including a significant portion of his salary and child support. He's moved across the country for a new job, apparently with no intention of being involved in his child's life. History repeats itself. I've started dating again, nothing serious, but it feels good to meet people who don't know my story. I'm more cautious now about trust, but I'm not bitter. If anything, this experience taught me the value of honesty and the importance of standing up for myself. Looking back, I sometimes wonder if there was a kinder way to handle the situation. But then I remember that voicemail, the casual cruelty in her voice as she planned to deceive me for years. She made her choice when she decided to try to manipulate me into covering for her mistakes. Some people have called my response nuclear, and maybe it was. But sometimes the only way to stop a lie from spreading is to hit it with the truth, hard and publicly. She wanted to avoid scandal by making me complicit in her deception. Instead, she learned that some truths are too big to hide, and some betrayals too deep to forgive. I'm planning to move to a different city next month, start fresh somewhere new. The house we were supposed to share has too many memories, and this town feels too small for both of us now. I'm excited about the possibilities ahead, about building a life based on honesty rather than lies. The wedding ring I bought her is still in my dresser drawer. I keep meaning to return it, but something holds me back. Maybe it's a reminder of the life I almost trapped myself in, or maybe it's just a very expensive paperweight. Either way, it serves its purpose. It reminds me that I deserve better than someone who would ask me to live a lie. She reached out one last time through a mutual friend, asking if we could talk about closure. I declined. Some chapters don't need a neat ending. They just need to end. The truth is its own closure.